Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, Nas and DJ Premier give a date to their upcoming, highly anticipated album. I review De La Soul's brand new album, Cabin in the Sky, and Stove God Cooks has a release date for his new album, but it's not until next year. We're waiting again. Let's do it.
Welcome to Hip Hop Now podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Big shout out to the supporters. That's y'all new name. Take it or leave it. The supporters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, what else? Pocket Cast, wherever you listen to this in audio form and you have subscribed, I appreciate you. I appreciate you if you listen, but I appreciate you more if you subscribe. That's just the way it goes. And big shout out to those who have become subscribers right here on YouTube to Hip Hop Now podcast, whether you came here because you like the shorts that I share, and trust me, it is a community share. I share other dope hip hop videos I find across the internet. No need for me to black out your name or your logo. We spread love. It's the Brooklyn way, okay? That's what we're doing. But also, if you came here for some of our other content, right? Like this weekly hip hop show here, That Time in Hip Hop with the homie Tony from IntoTheDome.com, or any special content that brought you here to the YouTube channel. This is the fourth quarter run, y'all. And not just for albums, not just for best of the years, but also to reach 25 subscribers by the end of the year. Right now we at 23. And we're approaching fastly 24. So if you enjoy the content you see, hear, or whatever, right here on this channel, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And if you're listening in audio form and you're like, man, let me go subscribe, because I listen to the audio, but I dig this content. The link is in the description of this episode. Now, let's get right into the business. Nas and DJ Premier have finally, mostly this is coming from Premier, as of this recording, have finally put a date on their long awaited, anticipated, and baited, maybe, who knows, album is dropping December 12th. It is the last album in the Mass Appeal 7 Icons, 7 Legends, or maybe it's the other way around, whatever, rollout of music that has, for the most part, been good. So Nas and Premier on December 12th is when we'll get the final album. And, I'll have a special episode coming up once this album dropped to obviously review it, but also to review the whole rollout. What was some of our favorite albums? What did we think about the overall rollout? What would we like to see in another rollout, right? Is it another 7? Who would that be? So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming in December. Big review of the album and the rollout. I mean the Nas and Premier album and the rollout. But here's my quick thoughts as far as like how things are feeling as we head into that album. Hold on, let me tweak the look real quick, y'all. Boom. Lighting. Let there be light. For our video watchers. how I feel headed into a December 12th release of a Nas and Premier album. Let's just go back just a little bit. I was never a hip hop fan who like craved a Nas and Premier album. Now I know when you look at, if you fast forward back, Nas and Premier couldn't miss, right? When you think about what Premier produced on Illmatic, right? Represent, New York State of Mind. New York State of Mind, probably my favorite record on Illmatic, right? Then over the years, the songs that Premier has produced with Nas, like Nas is like, you know what I'm saying? Even New York State of Mind Part 2 was kind of crazy. And I think Premier did that. So they have a history. You can name a number of songs they've done, you know, in the 90s for the most part that were crazy, that had people craving an album that's all Nas and Premier. How could that be whack? But it never happened. And literally decades passed. Decades. And now that we have it announced and it's happening, I'm a little skeptical. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's a couple of variables, right? One, there's probably a little bit of pressure, and I'm not talking about anybody who are haters, but there's probably a little bit of pressure to at least match the level that Nas and Hit Boy collaborated, right? Regardless of what you may feel, when I heard the beat to Speechless, I was like, my God. And that ain't the only beat that's tough that Hit Boy produced for Nas during that run. But when I heard that alone, I was like, yo, Hit Boy got a bag. So it would be only right. Nas and Premier, are you crazy? Of course that's going to be crazy. And then they put out a song to announce it. And the song was cool. It was cool. It felt like it could be something. But all my doubt doesn't come from everything I just said for the most part. Most of it comes from the fact that DJ Premier he's kind of like stuck in a lane, right? Now, I'm not saying he's stuck in the 90s. Of course not. And for his track record, so what? Right? But there was a time where DJ Premier, you couldn't predict his beats at all. You didn't know what you were going to get. And most of the time, if not 100% of the time, it was crazy. But in recent years, except for maybe Prime, and that was because he was sort of being challenged, he has a very predictable style nowadays. And I'm not going to lie, the minute I hear it, I'm almost like defeated, unless it's a crazy sample. But it's always put together in a very similar way, and that was never Premier. So anybody who will say, yo, this is what Premier do, no. Go back and listen to Gangstar. You can listen to one album. Premier could do the majority of the beats on any album you pick, except for that first one. Mr. Nice Guy. No, don't pick that one. Okay. Premier will tell you don't pick that one. But you couldn't predict them beats. They all sound different, and Premier was on the boards. Guru did some stuff too, but as far as what Premier did, it was not predictable at all. You can even look at, okay, what he did for Nas in his heyday. None of those beats sound the same. Represent don't sound like New York State of Mind. New York State of Mind don't sound like Nas is like, right? But now, every time, it doesn't matter what artist he's with, typically, including that announcement song with Nas, there's a certain, including this De La album, there's a certain style that he's comfortable with. So when he makes beats, they're predictable. The rhythm of it is predictable. It could be a new sample. It could be a number of things that are different from that beat versus this beat. But the rhythm is always going to be in a specific pocket. And I know there's some people, you're not really music fans like that, so you don't hear it. You're not really that deep with hip hop, and that's cool also, right? Like maybe you just want something dope. I'm with you. I think that's the least he can do is just give you something dope. But this is Nas and Premier. Long awaited album, awaited since the 90s. Making magic together as a duo for decades. Now, granted, I say decades, but Nas ain't really used Premier for in decades, really, to be honest. Go back and listen to the last however many albums. Premier don't have a track on them. Okay. So it's one of those things where I know what to expect from Premier, production wise, but I kind of don't, because there has to be something in Premier that says, okay, I did this album with Royce da 5'9", 2 albums called Prime, well received. My production wasn't typical of what I typically do nowadays when I make a beat, and people were receptive to that. I've had beats here and there that are kind of my formula, and a few here and there that kind of stood out because they were actually different. And Nas and Hit Boy just put out 6 projects in what, 2.5 years or something like that. And they're all well accepted, generally speaking. I'm DJ Premier. This is Nas. We did this big rollout with all these MCs. Most of it was flames. Damn near 99.9% of it was flames, okay? We are the finale. I can't give him just the boom boom bit record with a different bass line sample and the scratch of whatever the name of the song is. I can't do that on every record. I have to have people lean into the speaker and say, Premier did this? He's still in his bag. It has to happen. Look what Havoc did. Look what Pete did on this new Daylight. There's been some phenomenal. Look what Pharrell did with the Clips. It's time for Primo to be like, there's a reason why I'm known as the guy over here. I am the Dr. Dre of the East Coast. So it's time to show up. But I'm optimistic. So we'll see. So again, are you excited for Nas and Premier? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Do you agree about Primo's more recent beats? Do you feel like there's a formula there? Are you fine with having an album full of beats that follow that formula? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Next, we just talking about albums today, y'all. So, Stove God Cooks has a new album coming out. And if you've been watching my show, you know that already. Because I talked about it not too long ago. But now we have some concrete information regarding his follow-up to his classic album, Reasonable Drought. If you don't know who Stove God is, or you just heard him on the clips and you said Reasonable Drought and you hear me calling it a classic, go press play. I'm slipping today, you know what I'm saying? Bars. Not slipping, okay? But I'm just saying, once you press play, you know what I mean. But what's been weird for most fans of that album in particular, which I believe dropped in 2020 or 2021, one or the other, is there was never a follow-up. And that was because there was a dispute with the label. And he wound up signing to Griselda, but he couldn't release an album. He couldn't release his own music. So that's why for the last couple of years, including the Clips album, you've heard Stove God do hooks. And sometimes the hooks are long, like a verse, right? So it's almost like he has a verse, but it's the hook. But we want the album. Now, there was an EP that he released, but it was quickly shut down, called Stop Calling Me, I'm Cooking. and a song with a Marvin Gaye sample, I believe it's called Marvin, uh, like was released or leaked or whatever from that project not that long ago, and everybody loved it. But when I tell you, because I had that project, I was able to get it before it was pulled. It was crazy, right? It is crazy. Now I don't know if some of those songs will be on this album. I mean, considering when he dropped that EP, it was gone in like a week or so, where he couldn't sell it anymore. I would like to think that some of those songs will find their way onto his new album, which is scheduled to be released in February of 2026. I think February 27th or something like that. And it's called Goat Stamp. Now, I know there's a single releasing this month and probably has released by the time I'm recording this episode. And I'll just say this. I feel like Stove God has momentum that may or may not be hard to recapture in the next year, let alone in February. Now, I know this is a contractual obligation. This is his last album on Baby Grand, which I assume was the label he had to dispute with, which also makes me a little scared because don't give them the dud. Because I like the fact that this dude's momentum off that Clips feature had people who didn't even know who he was anticipating him, and it made me feel like it's going to happen. Now, it's very clear, like I said in my previous episode, that Jay-Z is the guy who gets you off your deals, because it felt like Stove God was never getting out this deal. And why do I say that? Once I see you in Rock Nation and all of a sudden now you got an album dropping, Hove did, okay? He did something. Hove did something, okay? Like he did it for the Clips. He's doing it for Stove God. So I am hopeful. He's had a lot of time to build music. I hope they select some of his finest work. I hope he has so much dope music that even this album with Baby Grand is enough to keep the hype going, basically. And I know a single's getting ready to drop, but like in the last segment, so is Nas and Premier. And whoever else may drop in between the time of Stove God finally releasing his second album, official album, in February. So I'm definitely hopeful. I'll keep listening to the music I have. I'm anticipating the new single. I wish it was still coming out in November, but whatever, we can wait. There'll be a whole holiday, best of the year. Like once we hit January, things will feel like it's dried up when it comes to hip hop, and you may get a notable release or two in January. But that just, maybe that's what'll make it dope, that Stove God is dropping by the end of February. And, we'll see. So, are you a Stove God Cooks fan? Are you finally as happy as I am that he has an official album dropping? Is February too far for you? I don't know. Leave the comments in the comment section below. And lastly, listen, man, you saw the title of the episode. I am not one of those old heads that only gets excited for old rappers or old, well, let me not say that. Let me stop saying old, but no, this is how people would look at it. Old rappers, albums by old rappers, new albums by old rappers. Like, I'm not one of those guys who thinks the music's good just because of what they've done in the past. You are being judged by what you release today because you're still active. I don't think any MC, and I hope not, feels like you should like their music because of what you've liked in the past. That's just not how it works. Now, you don't have to be disrespectful to the legends, but they should be critiqued fairly. And that's what I'm here to do. So you know what I do when it comes to reviewing albums. I give them 3 listens. The first listen is just to get my impressions. The second listen, now I'm listening a little deeply to what's being presented, lyrics, beats, skits, how everything works together, concept, theme, whatever. And then my last listen is just to confirm my thoughts. And De La Soul's brand new album, Cabin in the Sky, just for those who need a quick review, is flames, fire, hot, almost unexpected, but also expected. Now, I say that because when De La Soul, and first of all, rest in peace to Dave, True Goy the Dove, but when De La Soul, was having like the Tommy Boy dispute with streaming, and remember when they had, I think it was a Kickstarter for their next album that wound up being nominated for a Grammy, but to most De La fans, it was whack, including me. And what was whack about it? It was too different from what we were accustomed to. And not to say that rappers who've been rapping for as long as they have and releasing albums through decades and generations that they have to stick to a formula. But there was something unique about De La Soul's choice in beats, choice in subject matter, bars, guest appearances that we were just accustomed to. And you don't need to roll out the red carpet for all the people you used to, rock with and keep making songs with them until the end of eternity. You can bring new people on your project. Like with that album, they had 2 Chainz on it, but 2 Chainz had the best verse. And that's not a bad thing. 2 Chainz, when he in the hip hop element, he get busy. He just does. He just happens to do trap sometimes, but when he in the hip hop element, he show up. And that was telling, like, yo, this De La Soul album isn't what I thought it would be. And damn, 2 Chainz got busy. Like, I'm a little disappointed. And we know they got a Grammy nom, but they could have got that for a number of albums in their catalog that were just as good. I mean, well, not just as good, better. So now we bring you to Cabin in the Sky. And we know that Dave, one of the trio, passed away not too long ago. Everybody wondered what this album would sound like. Would Dave be featured? And this album, Cabin in the Sky, is basically dedicated to Dave in a lot of ways, who does obviously appear on this album rapping. He's the first rapping verse you hear on this album, but it's done in such a classy way. It didn't make, it's similar to the Mobb Deep situation. The Mobb Deep album didn't necessarily make me sad that Prodigy wasn't here. It made me proud to be a Mobb Deep fan, because it was like, even with our brother still, even with our brother not here, we can still give you one last good Mobb Deep album, and meaningful. And it doesn't sound like, a memorial service situation. That's how I feel like with Dave. It's just done in a way where the obvious, but De La Soul came to get busy. So the album has 20 tracks, some of which are skits. Some skits are tacked on the end of songs or in the beginning. 20 songs, an hour and 10 minutes. Now, hold up. Don't get up. I'm just like you. Sometimes when I hear that, I'm like, yo, 20? An hour and 10? I don't know if I have that time. I made time. And when I tell you it's worth it, it's worth the listen. Some of the guest appearances, some of which Yummy Bingham, I know her, right, from So Much More. Like, I love that record. She's featured on here a lot. Killer Mike is here. Q-Tip is on this album. Nas, as you know, Black Thought, Common, Slick Rick, Bilal, Star-Studded Affair. What I like about this album, just to kind of round things out, is De La Soul is kind of known for skits. They kind of birthed the era of having a lot of skits on your album back in the day. And I'm not the biggest fan of skits uh, today. As long as, put it this way, I'm not the biggest fan if the skits are like meaningless to what's happening, right? Similar to Raekwon's skits, right, on his new album, The Emperor's New Clothes. Except for maybe one skit, those others could have gone. They're meaningless. Like they just don't match. The opening skit, perfect. But the others was like, you didn't really necessarily need these. Whereas on Supreme Clientele 2, I felt like a lot of those skits fit the tone of the album. And the same thing goes for this with De La Soul. You start out with an intro with who's on the intro? Because I don't want to, we have a tendency to say the characters the actor played, but let's say the actor's name. Giancarlo Esposito. Okay. You know him from Breaking Bad, School Days. You know what I'm talking about. The Mandalorian. You know who he is. As a teacher in a class, taking attendance, and he's checking attendance, and everybody whose names he's calling answers, right? Nas, Pete Rock, DJ Premier, Knots, right? Q-Tip, everybody. And then he ends with, is Paz here? And Paz says what he says, like he ends with De La Soul, but he really ends with Dave. Is Dave here? And he says his name a couple times, and then the next song hits, and it's Dave rapping. I thought that was really dope. And I also like, just to skip to the end, how they ended by thanking Dave, but it's the teacher thanking him. And it's a nice way to say, you were saying Dave, he's not here. We know that, right? We know he passed away. He's not here. But at the end, the teacher thanking him and saying, thank you, Dave, says he was present. And if you listening to the whole album, the present, and especially a certain couple of songs where they, the members of De La Soul speak directly to Dave, that's what they kind of say. He's with us. We rather have him here with us, but he's with us. He's guiding us. He's keeping us warm. So to hear that at the end, after hearing, the teacher call for Dave in the beginning several times, just to have at the end to say he's present, I just thought that was a nice touch. That was just dope, right? But all in all, album-wise, most of the beats just hit. I mean, when I say most, I mean damn near all. Variety, boom bap, soul, like it just hits. There were times where I got a little scared. I ain't gonna front. Where I heard, old soul samples, not hip hopped up. They weren't chopped up for hip hop. They were primarily those samples where I was like, yeah, I don't want to dance. I like the original record, but it's kind of throwing me off. But then I realized they're not long. In some ways, they're used as interludes or interstitials, for those who know, to kind of get you, or segues, right? To kind of get you from one rhythm, one thought from a song to another, right? But still meaningful, but where it's placed. And I thought that was a nice touch. So, obviously listening multiple times, it didn't bother me. It was just initially, I'm like, is this going to be the record and everything goes downhill from there? And that wasn't the case. Now, for those who are keeping score, when you think about the Pete Rock production versus the DJ Premier production, it's not a contest, for one. I mean that in two ways, double entendre. It's not a contest to pit these two legends together, but also it's not a contest. It's Pete Rock. Pete Rock's production, as you saw with the song with or the album, the Auditorium Volume 1 with Common, is not predictable. It's just not. You have to hear him talking or hear somebody say, Pete Rock, where we at? Blah, 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 whatever. And then we know, oh, Pete Rock did the beat, unless we go look. But if you just going off of listening, I could spot the Premier beats, like I said earlier. I could spot them clear as day once they hit. And they weren't that bad to me. They just was like, oh, this is cool. Premier, this is what Premier does. But when I first heard, what's the joint, the package? I'm going to say pause for the kids in the room. When I first heard that, it made me smile. It felt good. Like the first time I heard Award Tour, I was like, damn, Tribe is back. And De La and Dave is on the hook. This feels good. Check the Rhyme used to feel good when I heard that come on. Like just good, like how people be like, yo, hip hop soul. Like, nah, there's some people who really make hip hop soul that give you the same feeling when you hear it. And the package sound like that. So again, this album is one of the best of the year. And with my best of the year episode coming up, I have a lot of work. There are a lot of albums that are worthy of being in my top 5 or even just being mentioned as best of the year. But in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 months, I've had to move things out because something better was made available. So, have you heard De La Soul's brand new album, Cabin in the Sky? Leave your review down in the comments section below. I love to know what other hip hop heads think, feel. It's a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. Continue to listen in audio form. It will always be available for those who need to, listen on the go. I'm not mad at you. But most importantly, and this is just not a slogan, but most importantly, share with people also enjoy this kind of content. Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.